Okay, good morning, everybody. It's 8:30, time to call the meeting to order for this Tuesday, December 23rd. Our first item is to approve the agenda. And this, by the way, is a revised agenda that, from what had been sent out earlier. So,
Move to approve the revised agenda.
okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Next item is citizens to be heard. Any citizens to be heard today on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Approval of the bills and vouchers.
Mr. Chair, move to pay the bills and vouchers.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. We'll move to our 8:35 item, and we have the Buffalo Red River Watershed District 2015 petitions for taxing authority. And we have Jerry Van Amberg and Bruce Albright with us today. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Well, nothing really new, I guess. We've been here before for this request. Under Watershed District Law, Chapter 103D, 905, Subdivision 3, it states that the watershed can raise general funding for projects of common benefit for the watershed district. Those funds need to be petitioned for by a political subdivision. So we come to Clay County, we've talked before why we do that. You're about 80+% of the monies we bring into the watershed, Clay County does, so we feel this is where we need to be. The petitions are very similar to what we've done in the past. We've done a general levy petition. This year that brings in 522,822 that's used for a variety of projects and programs. And then a second special levy, which is similar to what we've done in the past. That one this year for $450,000 and would be used for a variety of things. We're finishing up the Elkton Township Wetland banking site for wetland credits. The Watershed Building Fund, we're in the third year of a 5-year payoff on that. You have previously authorized us to use that $100,000 levy on an annual basis to pay off the building. We have a Buffalo River restoration project in Holly. We were told last night that that's about completed except for some cleaning and seeding. What that does is the river was straightened throughout the course of time, primarily in about the 1950s in Holly, and that was causing erosion, degraded water quality, all of the problems. The river was moving. We put about a half mile of meanders back into that river. So we feel that that is a true benefit for the Buffalo River, and worked with the city on that. So our share of the costs of that are about $130,000. The Manston Slough project, which is a retention project down in Wilkin County, was completed this fall. Local share on that of $100,000. And then we're working with the Clay and Becker Soil and Water Conservation District on a grant that they applied for to work in the Hay Creek watershed, which is the area that drains in eastern Holly through Stinking Lake and then ultimately to the Buffalo River, $50,000. So that levy is for a total of $450,000. Happy to report, I guess, that this will be the first year now that the newly added area to the watershed, about 400 square miles in parts of Wilkin and Otter Tail counties, will have the tax put on it. So 2015 is the first year that that happened because of filing things with the state auditor's office, making sure that we had the boundaries correct, etc. That process is now behind us. So we will be doing the updated plan for that area here in the next several months and hope to have that process completed by June 1st. So Buffalo Red now is about 2,000 square miles. Of course, The market value, the taxable market value of the district has went up now with the addition of the new area. I just did a quick comparison this morning. Last year, our total watershed tax, which was special levies, and the administrative fund was $1,108,665. The taxable market value in 2014, without the new area, was $5.7 billion. So a $100,000 home would pay about $19 in watershed tax. This year, our levy is slightly higher. The combined levy is $1,242,000, but then the taxable market value goes up to $7.2 billion. So on the same $100,000 house, the watershed tax would drop by $2 to approximately $1,706.
So that would be the trend pretty much across the board, where we'd actually see, even though your budget is slightly higher,
Yeah,
it's taxed
so
over a larger area.
That would go to, yeah, because it goes over a larger area, taxes in Martinsville, Clay County, Moorhead, everybody's taxes will go down. Of course, the new people in Otter Tail County are getting the tax. Otter Tail
Right, but at
Wickham
the same
for
point in
that.
time, you're still getting more things done, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we just got, have more and more coming at us all the time. Should be finishing up the Buffalo River TMDL. We know we've got water quality problems throughout the district. I think that's the trend we're going to see across the state of Minnesota as we do more and more of these studies. Buffalo Red took the lead on that. We were the first truly watershed district that did the TMDL based on a watershed concept rather than these reaches where they did 3-4 miles, which would have went on forever and they would have never gotten done. By us being the first in the state to have a watershed-based TMDL, we're hoping it opens lots of doors. The LaSard money, the sales tax money, the funding that Bowser gets, Clean Water Fund monies, they're looking for areas that have completed TMDLs. Well, you're looking at the first area in the state of Minnesota that has that.
So by finishing that, you were able to basically determine what areas may have some contamination to them? Is that
Yeah, what our contaminants are, Kevin.
and then how you can possibly mitigate those
Yeah,
to
the-
improve those?
Second document that goes hand in hand with the TMDL. The TMDL says, this is what we've sampled, this is your water quality sampling results. And of course, they give you a state standard or an eco-region standard. We're not meeting that. The second document that is part of the TMDL process is what's called the Watershed Restoration and Protection Plan. That document says, here's what you need to do to improve that water quality. Is it buffer strips, sediment control basins?
Do they still have the issue in there where if the TMDLs are too severe in an area where they can put a moratorium on growth? Is that still in there?
I don't know specifically. I mean, we've heard some of those things, like if the Buffalo River, for example, is carrying too much suspended solids and you had a drainage project for rural Clay County farmers, they could say, we don't think you can do your drainage project because the Buffalo River doesn't meet water quality standards.
I'm even thinking, Bruce, of and this, because this started a little while back when they wanted all this done.
Big Pepin thing?
Yeah, and there was, I know there was an issue on there, for example, if the mercury in the Red River, it can be something that's highlighted in the study. And what they were saying is if there's too much of something, there could be a forced moratorium on growth or ability to construct until you can find solutions to clean that up. That was my question, if that's still out there.
I remember those discussions, Kevin. We have not heard that strong of a language here
Okay.
as of late. And of course, from a common sense perspective, I mean, I don't know to say what.
I haven't heard of it being policed like that. but
That sure wouldn't seem to make any sense. I mean,
that all came on when, excuse me, when I was chair of the MRCC. That was an issue for a lot of the smaller counties. We're real concerned about that, about, when they go through and they're required to do all these water testings to meet the standards. And they were concerned that, well, what if they did find something and they didn't have any funds to
Well, we, our border to the west here, of course, is the Red River of the North, and you have two states involved, and
Right.
the two states don't even have the same water quality standards. So we jokingly say we're going to clean up our half of the river.
Yeah, I think that's, John, I think you had,
Well, I think that the one issue that probably we all think about back when Lake Pepin was, I can't remember what they call it, but the level of pollution was high. So some project in some city upstream of the Mississippi in Minnesota was going to actually improve their sewer system, their whole system. But because it still released some into the system, they couldn't do it at that point, which didn't make any sense at all. They were improving the system, but because of the pollution in Lake Pepin downstream, they were prohibited from improving their system.
Yeah, I think that was kind of, sort of an unusual deal. I think they were sued, actually. The state was sued, or MPCA was sued, because they hadn't done anything. Yeah, that's what put the stop on that for a while, until they finally come up with a plan. I
Okay,
believe.
okay, so that was resolved.
Yeah.
We are currently working as a pilot area in the state of Minnesota with what I term as a very exciting project, and this is that the Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certification Program. And producers can come in at no cost, have a score ran on all of their fields and how they're applying their pesticides and their nutrients, and when they're doing their tillage. If all of their fields score 8.5 or higher, they can become certified. And that gives them a 10-year exemption then from any new state or federal rules that would come down the pike regarding water quality. So what it's really doing is recognizing those people that are doing a good job, and there are producers out there that are doing that. Hopefully that will be an education tool that we can use then. For those that come in and score a 7, we're going to be working with them, and the Soil and Water Conservation Districts are going to be working with them to say you need a buffer here, you need side inlets here, so that we can get them certified. So I think it's a very exciting program, and of the 4 pilots, we're leading those in terms of acres already in the program. So that will go about another year and a half here, and so there's some things, progress being made in regards to water quality. I know an important issue to Clay County, of course, is flood control. That is one of the main topics of discussion, will continue to be until we truly find some solutions that are meaningful for all. We have pretty much, we're kind of saying we've kind of wrapped up our big 3, and Manston is done. Georgetown has a little work to do next year, and that'll be done. Oakport is ready to go. We just need the remaining $5 million from the legislature. The city of Moorhead said they will help us any way they can in that regard, and Kevin sat in on a meeting with them here a couple of weeks ago.
yep.
So we're looking into the future, and we have 3 different projects right now that are in very preliminary stage. One is some flood control work on the south branch of the Buffalo River in Wilkin County. We have a meeting coming up on January 8th for an area west of Barnesville. We're calling that the Barnesville Township Comprehensive Study, and looking for some large-scale flood control there.
What's their flooding source there?
Their flooding source is a 26 square mile, approximately drainage area, 26 square miles, that drains into the south branch of the Buffalo River at the confluence of Whiskey Creek. So up in Alliance Township, you've got the 3 waterways all coming together there, the Whiskey Creek, South Branch, and this Barnesville Township thing, and that is a real problem for them. And then on January 26th, the board is going to dedicate some of their agenda time to talk about a comprehensive project for Stony Creek, which is just north of Barnesville. That would start at Trunk Highway 9, and that goes to the confluence of Hay Creek near Baker, Minnesota. And if those are the areas, if you start looking at a map, we call that the middle zone. That's where, when we have a peak flood at one of the gauges at Dilworth or on the Red River, this is all water that's contributing to that peak. You have early water that gets in ahead of it. You got this middle water that's getting there right during the peak, and then of course you get out in, well, way out in Becker County, that's late water. That's coming after the crest has came and gone. So this is that middle water, and we've got 3 areas that are going to be under real close review, discussion. We're working with landowners. My hopes are that hopefully in the next 6 months here, something can break loose in terms of a large-scale flood control project, maybe in the vicinity of 8, 10, 12,000 acre-feet of water. And that's going to make some meaningful progress on the gauges when we get to Georgetown.
Good.
And even though it goes through the Buffalo River, it allows more flow to go down the Red, if, you know, that without causing problems downstream.
Okay.
And very quickly, if I may, just last but not least, I know that, you know, the Red River Watershed Management Board remains an important issue here to you as Clay County. Jerry had our new manager, Mr. Mark Anderson, up to a Red Board meeting in Ada here, I believe in November. So we are continuing to discuss that with them. Our hopes, and if you read my letter, is that we could maybe bring this to a vote sometime in mid-2015.
Okay.
I think the question will answer itself as soon as we come with some large-scale projects. 10,000 acre-feet, you're looking at 10 to $15 million, and obviously we don't have that type of funding, nor do we have the means to raise that type of funding. And only being a part of a larger pool of funds can I think we get this done. And I think the question will answer itself, but we'll see. I hope it does.
Well, yeah, you certainly keep us informed on that. There's certainly, there's been the majority of this board, as you know, that's fully supported trying to get that watershed back into a working relationship with the Red Board, so.
And trust me, we have not lost sight of that.
Good for you. John?
Just one question on your budget. It seems like you haven't raised the budget a whole lot for those extra acres you've taken in. Is that going to be adequate? I appreciate that it's lowering costs for Clay County, but is it going to be enough budget to cover that all that? It's a big area you've pulled in.
Yeah, John, I think the reason why we stayed, you know, very close or somewhat similar to the past year is the fact that we have just finished our big 3. This is going to be a growing year looking at new projects, and we may come back with something different a year from now, depending on where things are at, and of course, depending on where we would stand with the Red Board. But projects do cost money. There's no doubt about it. But I truly believe that if we can get 8 or 10 of these large-scale retention sites scattered across the district, I think it's going to solve about 80% of our problems. And that would be just huge. And I'd like to see that done before I leave.
Well, I want to commend Buffalo Red for the great leadership you've taken in the state. I mean, I hear, wherever I go, I hear mention that this is the leading watershed for all kinds of things, and we thank you for your good work in that.
Well, we thank you. Without your support,
Echo that.
none of this would happen, so.
Yeah, it's, I think we're very fortunate in the board members that we have, and with your work as a director and leading them in all these projects. It's clear you've got a good reputation amongst everybody, and that's really helpful.
It's maybe a good time to now to mention the fact that this past December, Bruce was recognized and honored as the Employee of the Year for all the watershed districts in Minnesota.
Well, I'm not surprised.
we weren't either, and we've thought that for a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well,
but,
congratulations.
It was nice to see that he was recognized that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. It's not surprising, but congratulations.
Congratulations.
It's well
Thank you very
deserved.
Yeah.
So back on to business now here for a minute. I wanted to point out now, and this may be good for Jenny sitting in here, because you guys come here once a year, and you probably won't be back here now till way next year, but for her to have, this watershed district now consists of land in Clay, Wilkin, and Otter Tail counties now,
Yes.
and a little bit in Becker.
Correct.
And what happens here is the Buffalo Red Board comes to Clay County to approve the budget. This is the one area where I oftentimes get a little nervous, because what we vote on sticks for those other 3 counties.
Correct.
And so my question has always been to you: have you gone to them? Are they aware of what your proposal was this year for for
Yes,
watershed?
I've shared the information with them, and depending on what your action is here this morning, if you do approve the two petitions for a budget in 2015, I share that again with them, and I also state that if they have questions or comments, we would be more than willing to come to their respective county and have this same discussion. I mean, we realize that, yes, it does affect the 4 counties,
Right.
and for the reasons previously stated, because 80+% of the money does come out of Clay
Right.
County. If we did it the other way around and went to Otter Tail where they put in 2% and go, now we're affecting 85,
We wouldn't be very happy.
that's why we do what we do. But
Yeah.
you are true, Mr. Campbell,
But
it does affect all of the
Yeah, and I
counties.
guess-
And they are aware of that. These proposed budgets have already been filed with them, and I would follow up
Okay.
based on what you do here today so that they are totally kept in the loop.
Because this is probably, Brian, I think this is probably the one area that I can think of outside of maybe a couple of other joint powers where we've combined that we actually, here in Clay County, establish a budget and a levy is placed on another county without their vote.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of saying that for you, Jenny, it's not a real significant issue, but it's one that we should be aware of.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the petition number 1 for the Buffalo Red River Watershed District.
All right, we have a motion for petition number 1, and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried.
And further, I would like to move a resolution containing petition number 2.
All right. We have a motion and a second on petition number 2. All right, any further discussion on that motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried, and those 2 are approved. So your funding should be set to go.
Thank you, and we will again share this with the other counties. And just a quick note, I may not be able to get here this afternoon, but to Mr. Effort, we appreciate all you've done and all of your involvement with water issues, not only in Buffalo Red River Watershed District, but throughout the Red River Basin. And while you won't be here, we are going to continue to see you because we have projects, and you know what they are, already being discussed down in your area. So we look forward to continuing to work with you and your leadership and guidance in that regard.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Thank you,
Thank
Bruce.
you, Commissioners, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And
Merry Christmas to you
Thank
too.
you. Thank you.
Good morning. Is this just, you have public comment, or?
Yeah.
Public comment, yeah.
Okay.
Polk County Commissioner. Polk County Commissioner.
Yeah, go ahead. Come on up.
Yes, all I wanted to do was driving through, and I wanted to wish Commissioner Everett a nice retirement from Polk County. That would be
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
Don.
you bet.
Okay.
Come back this afternoon.
I can't, I'm
No.
headed to Rochester, besides this weather's
Yeah.
tough.
Better be on the road, that's right.
Godspeed you and good luck to you, John.
Thank you, Don.
Okay.
Everybody else.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
thanks for stopping by.
You bet, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Back to your meeting, sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. Julie's not here today.
She's not, she's on vacation.
All right. Okay, we're here to talk about filling a correction officer vacancy. Good morning.
Good morning. We had a full-time employee give his notice last week. He will be leaving for the state patrol here in January. His last scheduled day is January 2nd, so we're here to get that position filled. It's
All right.
part of the mandatory staffing plan with the Department of Corrections. There would be little to no change in the budget. I believe the employee that's leaving, I think here says hasn't even been here a year. I don't believe he's even been here 6 months. so-
Okay, so the step and everything will probably stay the same.
Yep.
Okay, there probably wouldn't be a whole lot of payout and
No, I think there's
Sick
very
leave.
little vacation hours or
vacation
even.
hours.
I'll move to approve.
Second, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. That's pretty easy.
It was, thank you.
All right, have a good day.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. Okay, Dave Overbowl. You have some things for us today.
Yeah, our first item on our agenda is to go over and give a little demonstration on our ADA transition plan. This is Mike Bittner from Cattermostley and Jackson, who was hired by Highway Department to help us gather data, do some of the inspections on the county infrastructure, and then basically put together a report and moving forward on how to be in compliance with the ADA transition plan with our right-of-ways and our sidewalks and things like that. And this time, Mike maybe is just going to give a little demonstration, a little information on what we did and why we did it, and let you see kind of how it turned out.
I'm going to run through this at a pretty high level, try to get through it as quick as I can, so I might generate more questions than I answer going at this level, so by all means, please ask me questions, or we can definitely send you the report afterwards. So why an ADA transition plan? ADA stands for the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's an act developed in 1990 that ensured that there was no discrimination against people with disabilities. And the reason why this is so important, not only for accessibility within the county, but I believe Moorhead was the first in the country to have a claim against them for not having a transition plan. And as recently as last year, the city of Fargo got in trouble with the federal government for not having a transition plan. So it's really important that we develop this at a timely fashion. So the scope of our project is the public rights of way. And so we're looking at all of the county maintained and operated roadways, and we look at the rights of way. So we look at the sidewalks, particularly where someone with disabilities would be at. And we also look at the buildings. So this building we're in today, from here all the way to Dave's office, and we looked at everything from the door outward. So how do we go about putting together a transition plan? Well, first we need to determine all the deficiencies. We went around to the entire county. Then once we know all our problems, we develop a transition plan. Obviously, there's a lot more needs than there is funding available. And finally, we develop policies to ensure continued ADA compliance. So the types of deficiencies we commonly see as we went out into the field, and this slide will be very useful. You guys will be able to walk out today, and you guys will be ADA experts, and you'll be able to point out a couple issues we actually had at this facility. So this will be really important slide for you. So this first example is in Ulen. You can see that we don't have a curb ramp. So someone with a wheelchair couldn't access the sidewalk. And even if they could, it wouldn't be a very friendly place for them to travel. The second example is in Moorhead. You can see that we have driveways with steep side slopes, so someone in a wheelchair would be kind of pulled into the driving path. And we also, at the bottom, you can see we don't have a wide enough area for someone in a wheelchair to pass. Here's the location at Dave's office where we don't have detectable warning panels. So if you look at 11th, just outside, you can see those yellow squares with the bumps. Those are for people that are blind, so they can feel the difference in surface. So they know that they're about to enter the roadway. And then obviously here's another example. So as we went out throughout the entire county, what we found was 228 deficiencies. 70% were curb ramp related, and 30% were because of those detectable warning panels. Now, this is pretty common. It's very challenging to meet ADA because the curb ramps have changed and evolved so many times since 1990. So what's happening in Clay County is very common for a lot of the counties that we work in. And so you're kind of chasing your tail, it feels like at times, but really it's important to have this transition plan so we are meeting it. So I wanted to give a quick example of probably the most interesting or exciting part of the project was we developed an interactive map so that to provide Dave and his staff. And what we did is we took train field staff and we gave them an iPad and they went out and they walked. So this is just outside of the building right here. This is the courthouse. And we went out and every time we found a deficiency, we would take a picture with our iPad, we'd take some notes, and this allows Dave to go on in live time and see exactly what we're seeing, see what the issues are, and then he can go in and make some changes to our GIS file. And so as he moves forward, he can say, I've checked these ones off, I've done these ones, and we still need to address these. And so it's a really powerful tool for continued success for ADA compliance. So next, we have all our issues. We want to develop a prioritization plan. So we developed a scoring system based on the types of deficiencies, and then we developed a multiplier for context. Obviously, we're trying to locate our improvements for locations that would have the most potential for pedestrians with disabilities. And then we divided that by the length of the area so that we can kind of compare apples to apples, a long corridor versus a short corridor. So here's the transition plan. And this is based on that scoring criteria that we put together. And I won't go into the detail of each of the improvements, but I will note a couple things as you look at this list of projects. And first and foremost, it's $570,000 in 2014 money. And we developed a 20-year plan so that we could, put a reasonable plan of getting to compliance. And as you look at inflation, that it grows to $700,000. So there is definitely a financial investment required. Another thing to note is as you look at our improvement plan, we also incorporate our capital improvement plan. So as Dave's looking at projects, you can see that our inaccessibility index doesn't match our project priority. And a good example is County Road 117 in Glendon. That project is slated for 2018, and so we moved it up. And so it's really, you try to implement these when you can, when there's funding available, but then there's also this plan in place so that when there's funding you have some extra funding available, you can start knocking off some of these projects. And so here's a map of the county. You can see it's focused on the urban areas where there would be pedestrian activity. And as the green lines indicate the short-term projects, the orange midterm, and the red long-term. And so now that we've got a plan in place, the first thing we want to do is get this plan out. So, in addition to this update, we're also going to post it on to the Clay County website. We'll send it to all the affected cities, and then we'll also involve some advocacy groups, particularly here in Moorhead. There are several that specialize in accessibility. And then we also appointed an ADA coordinator, so we can, as we move forward, if there's any issues that arise, particularly with this grievance procedure we developed, if there's something that comes up, they have someone to talk with and work through, and we have all the steps and procedures. And so with that, it's a pretty high-level view of the particular project, but you can see how we take it from planning our issues to implementing the solutions to really making Clay County a much more accessible county.
I don't know if anybody remembered, but last year at the AMC conference in St. Cloud, they did have several demonstrations at the conference with regard to consultants that have done ADA transition plans. And I know it's been kind of not a big deal, but it's been an ongoing deal with counties. And I just thought it was important that, being that it's law that we need this plan. I didn't realize that the city of Moorhead had a claim, and as well as Fargo's got an issue. So I guess I feel a little more comfortable knowing that we've got our plan in place. We do have a 20-year prioritization list, and as projects come up or as money comes up, we will try to
so
pick away.
that was my question, is the, we go out there and we're basically airing our dirty laundry. That's what we're doing. We're saying these are all things that aren't in compliance. And we're not, we're having to spread this thing over many years to try to solve them all. But yet, if we have an incident at any one of them, it can be extremely expensive for us. Am I correct in that analogy?
I think roadways would be similar to that too. There's a lot of township roads that don't meet current standards right now.
I'm just getting it.
But
So when we, so if these are issues that we're required to address and we're required to note all of the deficiencies in a plan, and we have deficient bridges too,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
And deficient bridges, after a certain period of time, you have to replace
Yep.
these deficient bridges. So what do we do? Where are there sources of funding that are available that we can go to for these types of projects? Or do we look at incorporating this into a highway budget and a capital improvement plan budget?
I think both. Two of the projects listed on there will be from Safe Routes to School funding, so that's a good answer there.
Okay.
One's down in Barnesville, I think that was the third project on the list. City of Barnesville did have a Safe Routes plan. They opened bids, but there wasn't any bids, so I guess that's a little history there. Project number 2 was there in Glendon, and we are currently applying for a Safe Routes to School grant for that as well, to put paths and upgrade sidewalks.
So when we have this plan, we also then should try to come up with the solution as to, when it comes time, how we're going to fund it, shouldn't we?
Correct.
So, and this maybe goes to you, Brian, a little bit, when on all these campus issues that we have, and there's obviously some campus ones, those campus ones, I doubt that we're going to be able to get Safe Roads to Schools funding on those types of things for them.
Correct.
And that might just have to be where they would be required to do out of our capital improvement projects. So what I'm saying is some of these things, it appears, might have to be broken down. What is campus related that, we're gonna just be getting set to do our next 5-year plan coming up here pretty soon.
Sure.
For campus issues, we talk, that we have some potential new highway building that could come down the road, and then for all those ones that are tied to other projects, can we incorporate them into when we're going to redo certain county roads?
Yep.
To lessen that cost, or you could probably put that cost in.
Build it in, exactly.
Build it in with that.
And that's kind of, I think, what we're expected to do, is first we need a plan to identify things, and then we need to plan forward on how we're going to address them, prioritize them, how you're going to link them with certain road projects and that sort of thing.
And you hit it right on that. That's exactly how it's laid out in the plan. We've got the campus as separated, and then
Okay.
the roadway, and then exactly we incorporated the capital improvement plan as with our prioritization, knowing that Glendon, that's going to happen with those. And those are requirements when you do a reconstruction, like in Glendon. You have to meet those.
So we have a capital improvement plan that we deal with that is exactly that. It's capital improvements for our building and our structures. Then we also have a 5-year highway plan, construction plan. And so maybe some of these things that have to deal with what goes on along highways needs to be brought up and discussed on a priority basis, how we can fit them in when
Sure.
we're talking about our 5-year highway plan.
Yep.
Or, because if we don't, it's got no place to go to get traction to get
Yep.
it done. John?
I think you're referring to our liability on some of the,
Right.
laying out all the problems,
Right.
and increasing
That's
our
exactly-
liability. But
yeah.
my understanding is that just having the plan, gives us protection against liability. I mean, obviously, we have to make progress in that plan,
Yes.
but,
I don't see how that would relieve you of your liability. I think if you're going up and you're telling everybody, we've got these problems and we got this big deal here, and if somebody goes and trips and breaks their arm on it, they're gonna come back and go, well, you even knew it, and you didn't do anything about it. To me, that's a larger problem for us. And I don't look at Jenny for that, but it would seem
Yeah,
to.
my understanding is having the transition plan would insulate us from being fined under the Americans with Disabilities Act
there
for
you go.
non-compliance with the plan. But as for civil liability for personal injury or otherwise, it wouldn't really have a bearing on that. So that's why we need to prioritize what's most important and what
Right.
maybe is most risky. That's maybe not the best word, but and fix those things first.
on the other hand, Mr. Chairman, if we haven't identified the problems, we'll never fix them.
Oh, true,
So,
true.
that's a-
There's no question, that's true.
All right, well, that was our demo on that. I just want
Okay.
to make you aware of what we had and how we're going to move forward. And, and I guess the biggest thing is if we do try to request some funding in our 5-year plan, now you'll kind of have a little idea why and what we're up to.
Well, I think there's two approaches that you're going to have to do going forward on this to get them done. One is to bring them to two different sources. One you're going to have to be in touch with Brian for the capital improvement plan, those areas that would, again, be for structural here on campus. And then on the 5-year highway construction plan for those areas that are in outlying areas and along roadways and sidewalks.
Okay, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Before we move off that topic, if I may, Dave did contact me in regards to doing this plan, and I have to give him a lot of credit. He said I think it would be advantageous if we look at the whole county, and so that we can work on things as projects. He used the example of 11th Street. 11th Street probably was delayed a little bit because of all of the ADA cement that were put in, and the
Right.
curbs and things along those lines. So this is really on the right track, and like I said, Dave didn't ignore the campus or any other building. He asked for that to be included, and said he'd pay for the study out of his own pocket even.
Wow. What a guy, Dave.
Just
That is
kidding.
Christmas.
Well, thanks, Dave. Okay, how about, let's move on to, oh, yeah.
Copies
Frank.
of those priorities that you have or whatever.
Yep, I can get you a copy of that.
All right,
Yeah.
so we'll move on then to the replacement of a motor grader position.
Yeah, we got another notification that one of our operators is going to be leaving us. He gave us his 2 weeks' notice about a week ago. He'll be done effective December 26th. This is for the district just north of Moorhead. He's a really good operator. He's got he's probably been here 6, 7, 8 years or so, but he's just a really good operator. Runs a lot of our backhoe in the summertime. It's going to be kind of hard to replace, but nonetheless, we'd like to move forward if we could. And we're currently still looking for the one applicant that retired. Probably will be interviewing for 2 people, and then depending on if one is a truck driver that moves into a blade, I guess. But I'd like to get permission, I guess, to replace this one as well.
So you're looking, so we would have 2 motor grader positions open?
Correct.
And then is there, you say there is a chance of moving somebody from the truck to the motor grader?
Yeah, internally, we need to advertise for 5 days per the union contract.
So your request, you'd also want to be able to backfill those positions then, wouldn't you?
Correct, yes. please.
Okay. All right, John.
My understanding is that this is the same precision description as the last one we advertised, so.
Yep.
So you can use the same pool of
Yeah,
respondents.
and essentially, that will save us a little advertising money. When we do go out to the papers, we won't need to re-advertise. Had this happen a month from now, so timing-wise, it's bad to have 2 vacancies, but yet if they're at the same time, it'll save us $800-900 in advertising.
Yeah, we're just, hopefully the snow season's here now, and,
Yeah.
I'll move to approve.
all right, we have a motion, and that includes to backfill?
Yes.
Okay,
Second.
in a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Approval of MnDOT agreement for sharing sand and salt storage in this storage building.
Yeah, this is a 5-year partnership agreement. We signed one in 2009 with, it's kind of a cooperative between MnDOT, the city of Barnesville, and Clay County. We share their facility. They allow us to keep our material underneath their covered storage shed, as well as use their loader and have access to it. So it's really good for the city and the county. They don't ask for much other than that we keep an adequate supply, and that when the material gets brought in there, if they need help mixing it together to make that 10% blend, that we're available for that. And the cooperation's always worked really well. I don't know of any issues there, and just kind of it's a 5-year deal, so we'd be back hopefully in 5 years, as long as there's no issues between now and 2020.
So you share the material?
Well, we all put our own in there, like the city buys salt and sand, the county buys salt and sand, as well as the state, and then.
So you have your own piles in there?
Yeah, and then there's a tracking mechanism, there's the sheet that you need to fill out as you do withdrawals. And then come June 1st, part of the agreement also states that all 3 parties need to come together and kind of rectify with the quantities, and it just so happens that there's always a little shortage. You kind of try to do a rough survey of what's there, you take a look on paper what's there, and then you just make an adjustment that's fair to all 3 parties. It's not an exact science. Someone might forget a load, or one bucket load's bigger than the next one, but nonetheless, it works out good. We all kind of share. If one entity's using 3 times as much as the other, then they proportionally take that amount of the shortage too. So we do the same thing in Moorhead as well.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Brian?
And Mr. Chair, I see on the letter from DO, or the MnDOT, that they would also need a resolution, so we would devise a resolution from your motion just to
Okay.
support the document.
All right, very
So
good.
you're also voting on that.
Yep, you're right. They did require a resolution. Vicki took a look at what we did in 2009, and she drafted one up as well. So I guess we would need approval of that resolution as well.
Be part of the motion.
That's part of the motion and part of the second.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. All right. Approval of addendum to road use and repair agreement with Lakes Wind.
Yeah, as per section 6.2 of our road use agreement with Lakes Wind, it was spelled out that we were to hire, or they were supposed to hire an independent engineer that would go out and it's protecting the county of road damage. After the project was complete, we didn't see near the amount of damage that we might have forecasted or expected to see, and I think it would be a little overkill to hire someone for maybe as high as $50,000 to come out, review all the roads and give a report on it. So we asked and kind of negotiated out with Lakes Wind to possibly just provide us some additional funds for graveling and some road patching rather than spend it on engineering, whereas we didn't feel it was necessary. And they were in agreement to that. And like I said, I think the cost of the report initially was estimated at maybe as high as $50,000. So we kind of came to an agreement on maybe a $25,000 payment to the county in which we will use for graveling. We were also kind of the lead entity for the townships out in this area as well. And I believe it was Tansum and Park Township. So I've got a agreement with Lakes Wind. It's also signed by the two townships, and the county will be another signer as well on this addendum, basically stating that we will use funding for the road repairs versus the independent report.
I would move that we approve the addendum to the agreement to state as David just expressed.
All right. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Frank. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thank you. Does everyone want, or does anybody want a copy of, a full copy of the ADA report, or is there any part that I can provide?
I think if you could leave one with the
That's what I was
administration
thinking. I
here.
should have, maybe I'll have one, you know, obviously Darren being the coordinator, I'll have one for Darren, and I'll have one maybe up in Brian's office as well, and I can provide you with specifically that prioritizing sheet so you can see. Okay.
We have one question. On the proposals for some of the smaller communities and so on, I mean, you have dates of 2028
Sure.
and so on. Is that when you're projecting also the road to be done?
No, I think we just tried to we tried to fit a certain timeline, whether it was 10 years, and we just didn't know if we would be able to get it all done in a 10-year period, so we
But
went.
you would do it in conjunction with any road.
Absolutely.
Road building.
And part of my thinking was too, is if we don't have any road work in that area, or if we have those couple of years where maybe, like the next 3 years, we're gonna be paying back some bond payments. Maybe we try to put together a capital improvement plan with regard to these communities, and we try to knock off. I think it'd be best to have a certain size of a project. You wouldn't wanna just have a real small one. You might wanna pick Ullin and Felton and Georgetown, or I think Georgetown's complete, but nonetheless, that would be kind of my plan, is to try to pick a certain size of a project, whether it be about $30,000, $40,000, and then make some of those repairs and kind of take a look at that prioritizing. That's kind of what I was hoping to do over the next few years. Not try to get too far out with this thing, like Kevin said, so we don't have this liability hanging over our head. But I think if we show that we're trying to make improvements, you know, our first year was 11th Street, right outside. Our next year will probably be Barnesville, being they're going to rebid that Safe Routes project here this spring. Our next project is looking like it's probably going to be Glendon, and then after that, we're going to need to kind of put our heads together and see where we want to go next.
Does each city also have to come up with an American Disability Act plan, or?
You know, I know.
I mean, because we're doing, I saw Ullin was on that thing, and,
Yep, I would think they would, because they're going to have city streets that are going to have pedestrian and
I
curb
think
ramps
you're
as
gonna
well.
get your answer.
Mike has an answer.
Yeah.
Transition plan is required for any agency with over 50 employees, so a city like Ullin wouldn't yet need one.
Okay.
oh, okay, good.
That's,
I was just wondering, was Ullin's responsibility or our responsibility?
it wouldn't be your responsibility. I mean, it's still, if they do a reconstruction project with some sort of, if you ever have any sort of federal funding, you do have to have these improvements as part of the project. But if it's just theirs and those, their own requirements, they don't have to have a transition plan or meet those.
So the bigger communities of 150 more employees, that's the threshold.
Yep, just 50 employees, yeah.
Oh, 50.
50, so yeah, it's,
This money that we're giving back to the small communities from the
Wheelage tax?
Wheelage tax, Could that be used for these
Yep,
projects? Is that-
Absolutely, and I believe, there will be a fair share for the city of Glendon on our project. They've got some water and sewer, as well as we're going to be a co-applicant. I'll be coming a week from today with regard to co-applicant for a safe routes and a tap grant. So I believe their village share will fund some of their cost on those projects.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Brian, good morning. We're going to talk about some, replacing some vehicles.
Yes, good morning.
It's that time of year, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's our annual proposal for sheriff's department vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
This year, we're planning on selling 10 vehicles and now purchasing 10 more. The total cost of our replacement for purchase amount is $264,558. Internal service in our auction funds are at $319,910. There would be an excess of funds returned to internal service for $55,402. We did have 13 vehicles, actually, we should have replaced, but I held 3 back. Again, they had low mileages, and we're trying to even it out a little bit to have the same amount every year instead of having a big group and then a small group, so.
So you certainly have enough to cover the purchase, and you have 50, but then you're also you're gonna sell these?
Yes, they'll be sold at.
And so that'll help build that fund back up again as well?
Correct, well, for the 2015 vehicles, we'll be able to
Yeah.
use that money, yes.
Yeah, so that 55,402 will be raised by not only what we put in the internal service fund for the next year through the budget, but then also on the sale of the vehicles, which usually you sell in May, you usually sell them?
Yeah, end of April.
End of April,
Yep.
yeah, okay. And those proceeds go back into their...
Correct, yes, yep.
So you theoretically, we could get back up into the 250 range, maybe?
Maybe. The other question I got on this, we've had the rotation of 4 and 5, 4 for the marked and then 5 for the unmarked. We have not changed that back to 3 and 4 like we had planned, I think about a year ago, we had talked about it. What happens is the internal service funds, and I'll just show you what we had this year. For vehicles that we've had for 3 years, like the 2013 Explorers, which are 2012, we bought them in 2012, they're just 2013 models. The internal service funds come to $21,889. In the new vehicle is $26,000, a little bit over $26,000. So we're short on the internal services on them vehicles. We'll be keeping that 3-year.
Yeah, but you're
Four-year liquidation.
you're still gonna get the salvage value out of that would get you into probably paying for it.
That's correct. It's going to be pretty close, but eventually it's going to catch up to us where we'll be short. Just so you're aware of it.
Well, I haven't seen you guys be short on this yet.
No, but each year is getting less and less, and then,
Keep watching it. If it looks like we need to up something, we'll up it, but at this point, you guys have done a nice job with maintaining the internal service fund with what you're replacing, and
Okay.
we haven't had to divvy up money. That's always a
No.
good thing.
No, that's always a good thing.
request.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the sale or the purchase.
Second.
Okay, and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. You're good to go, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have a good Christmas.
Yeah, Merry
You
Christmas
too.
to you too. All right, committee reports. John, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
If you're ready.
Excuse me. Last week after our hit planning commission, or we had highway tracking last week too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've heard, a lot of things. We did talk about the possibility of a new facility out in the eastern part of the county for the Rolog and Hawley road maintenance areas, and we're working on those possibilities and the possibility of having a sale for our existing facility, which would help us in finding the money to build something new. That's to be further studied and reported on later. The Planning Commission met on Tuesday night. It was a very short meeting with just 2 public hearings and uneventful. And the next day we had Extension Committee meeting, and Frank is the chair of that, so I'll let him report on that. But it was a good meeting with reports and evaluations and so on. I attended the Historical Society volunteer appreciation luncheon or brunch on Wednesday last week, followed by the board meeting later in the afternoon, and pretty much routine business there. There was also a SWAC meeting, a Solid Waste Advisory Committee meeting at 8 o'clock. We've been meeting at 7 o'clock for years, thinking that that's the only time people could come, and found out that everybody could make 8 just as easily. So that was the last, my last successful venture with that organization, is to move the time so that nobody had to get up at 5 o'clock to get to a meeting.
And guess who was there at 7? And I was the one also pushing to have it at 8.
So anyway, we did accomplish that, and a lot of things happening with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and it's an exciting future, I think, for all the possibilities with recycling, improving recycling with a new kind of facility and so on. And so there's been some tough decisions for you guys to make in the near future, but I hope you decide to go forward with those ventures. I think they'll be very helpful to the county. Then yesterday there was a meeting of Lakeland Mental Health, and that was pretty routine business. Things are looking good for Lakeland. There will be a number of board changes, however, and with my leaving and the commissioner from Douglas County leaving, as well as a couple of the others, we have to have to be reappointed. But the organization has done very well and is very strong, and of those mental health facilities around the state, I think we've got to be standing tall. I think we're doing very, very well there. So that was a good last meeting for me there. I appreciated how this organization has strengthened itself over the years, and really is doing well and serving us very well. That'd be all.
Thank you, John. Brent.
Let's say at the annual Greater Fargo Ward Economic Development Corporation meeting, and we just voted on new members there, discussed the 2015 budget, and we had a presentation on the 5-year planning initiative they just completed, and I've got a copy of that if anybody wants to see it. We had a jail committee meeting, and we're going to have another one today. We're discussing some issues with electronic monitoring that we'll probably be coming back to the board with in the near future. So that was it for me.
All right, thank you. Wayne.
On Tuesday, December 16th, the Local Advisory Council for Adult Mental Health, General Business. Then we had a presentation by Pat Boyer from Clay County Social Services. She went over and explained the BCOW. That's an acronym for Becker, Clay, Otter Tail, and Wilkin counties, their mental health initiative and their 2015 grant plans. Agency reports from Clay County Social Services, solutions from Derek Swenson from the Moore Police Department. Thursday, December 18th, Lake Agassiz Regional Library Executive Committee meeting. General business, financial report. There will be no deficit spending this year. The director's report, and then we upgraded the bylaws regarding the size of the board, which will go to the full board in January. Friday, December 19th, again for Lake Agassiz Regional Library. This was for Northern Lights Library Network, an executive meeting at Moorhead State regarding relocation. We met with an assistant vice president of Moorhead State. and it is imminent that Northern Lights Library Network will be relocating its offices there. However, board approval, of course, will be the deciding factor, and that will take place within the first few months of 2015. So,
Thank you. Frank?
Yes, on Wednesday, as John had said, that we had the extension. There's reports given by each supervisor, and did evaluations of 3 of the supervisors. There's another thing that we discussed there that I'm a bit concerned about is the halftime position that we approved for them to have. We're having trouble maintaining that one filled, and I don't know whose job it is or whatever. We should look into whether that's the right way to go. I know we're giving funding for that much, but it hasn't been filled for a while. It's been in there, then we had a part-time person in there, and then that person quit and took applications and interviewed 2 people, and they both turned it down, and it's just, I don't know if that's the right way to go with that position or not, and I was just wondering whether we can combine that, and I don't know, that's probably University Extension's call on that one, but it just seems like we're doing a lot of interviewing there and stuff. That was my concern on that one. Thursday, I went to FM COG meeting there with the new area that we're taking in, Hawley, Castleton, Kindred, some of those towns are included in some of those. In fact, John Young from Hawley was there for the meeting. Discussed stuff. The Hawley Transportation Plan was approved, Dilworth Subdivision Ordinance Plan, and after that, just prioritizing different projects for North Dakota, Minnesota, for the TAP application projects. After that, I went to the family health care. Again, I had the normal financial report, patient satisfaction report, the grant request and approval. That was it.
I think, that issue with the halftime extension, I know maybe Jenny will have interest in taking John's spot on there and bringing some new light. Jenny, I think you have a history of being involved with 4-H and extension, so maybe the 2 of you can help get that ironed out. So it's a hiring issue, huh?
Well, it's a benefits issue. If people get another offer for a job that pays benefits, they're not going to take a half-time job without benefits. And,
I think someone probably using it for a stepping stone. I don't know. While they're looking for something else, they'll take this half-time position, and probably I'm getting involved in something. But I know I'm a bit concerned. We approved the money. They say they need the help, but we're having a tough time keeping someone in there right now. So.
Plus, they're losing their clerical person too. Of course, that's just in the Clay County portion.
That's a county.
Yeah. All right, my reports. John talked about the highway tracking meeting that we had. We did talk about the interested parties that are looking at our Hawley shop. We had a little bit of a discussion regarding the Felton County pit. We had some discussions regarding our permit fees and how we establish, how we deal with those. We did discuss the ADA transition plan. And then we talked a little bit about a City of Mord water line easement issue. Then also, I did attend, but I had to leave after a short period of time. I did attend the Greater Fargo-Mord Economic Development Company's Corporation's annual meeting. And I had to leave there because I had a meeting lined up with our local legislatures to discuss a couple of issues. That's on that same day. Our solid waste advisory meeting was held on the 18th, and we got an update on landfill activities, and we did get an update on our feasibility study that's going on, excuse me, regarding a potential different site for transfer station and MRF sorting system for garbage, single sort sorting system. So that's all in a preliminary phase, but we'll be working quite hard on that to come up with how we can implement it. John, I know you said you'd like to see that done, and I know that Kirk and Steve from the city I received an email from them yesterday. They're hoping to get together soon to meet to see how we can make all this work. Then, let's see. I guess that's all I have to report on. Brian?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be real brief. Highway tracking, attended that, that's been covered well. Solid waste, the same with that. I think there's some big issues coming down the pike there, so, but it'll work its way through, and I think we'll have a progressive schedule laid out at some point in the near future. Jenny and I met with Dave and Elroy from the Snowmobile Club, and Jenny rewrote a new agreement with the Snowmobile Club that I think will be very useful. But it was really good to have a meeting with them and understand what we do in regards to that snowmobile trail and how we act as a sponsor and different things. Had a central administrative manager and supervisors meeting last week, which went well. A lot of things going on with every single department within the county, that's for sure. We also met, Dave and Jenny and I, on a land transfer issue that you guys approved in exchange with the city last year for them building a dike and a flood wall out on, 9th Street, and we need to get things tightened up on that, which we certainly will. Been doing some work on the jail planning prep. I need to talk to Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner Whalen a little more on that. I know you guys put together a committee on that, but if we're looking at dealing with the legislature, we need to move forward pretty aggressively on that. We'll visit a little bit after this meeting. And started compiling information for the chair's State of the County address, and I guess just lots of other little things going on. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Brian. Anything else, Vicki, for us? No, we have closed session.
I have a question. After 20 years, I still don't quite understand the difference between us making a motion and the power of making a motion for something in a resolution. Why does a resolution have more power? Or what happens there? 20 years, I haven't figured that out. So,
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Everett, I guess I'll give you my 2 cents on it, and I've read on it, and Jenny probably has an opinion on it too. Technically, they carry the same weight.
okay.
It's just a written document that can associate, I'll say grant applications, and it seems like when you carry, I've got 5 resolutions from other counties, so there's heavy support. It's just you're going on record, and a motion is going on a record, but you motion everything else, so it just gives the appearance of carrying more weight.
More formal. So.
If Jenny has a legal opinion on
Brian's
that.
right on, in my understanding.
There's no greater power with it, though. It
just lays it out.
Easier to present to others.
It just lays it out in writing specifically, doesn't it, is what it does?
More so in the justification why you made the motion and things like that. You could do it all in an explanation of why you're going that direction with minutes and things too, but it's a formal piece of paper that.
Very good, thank you.
Like
Resolutions are documented by number as well, aren't they?
Right,
Whereas
yeah.
motions are not.
That's true.
Yeah.
Kind of like a proclamation.
Yeah.
You can make a proclamation or you can put it in writing. If you want to present it to someone, you're going to want to have it in writing.
All right.
Thank you. Nice to have clarification of something I've been working on.
Well, I'm glad this bothered you for 20 years when you finally asked.
Leave with peace of mind.
I've never known you to be short of asking a question. It took you 20 years to ask that one.
But it did, yeah.
All right, we will be going into closed session for,
We need a motion for
Yep.
that, Mr. Chair.
So moved.
and this is
Second.
regarding a
Tax appeal.
tax appeal. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried, we're in closed session.